Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA studios, this is Politics and Profits. I'm Rick Amato. Well, as many of you may be aware, illegal border crossings are down significantly. And most folks give credit to the Trump administration, if for nothing else, their rhetoric. But my next guest says that's not the case. He went on Fox and Friends and said that the Trump administration is sort of a byproduct, not the main reason as to why border crossings are down, and he was criticized deeply by some in the conservative media for taking that stance. Joining me in studio is syndicated columnist through the Washington Post Writers Group and the most widely read Latino columnist in America, Ruben Navarrette. Ruben, good to see you.
Good to see you.
So you don't think that the White House is responsible for this drop?
Absolutely not. Here's why. 5 years ago, in 2012, I was in Mexico City, and I was there on a series of meetings. And even then, academics there and media then were talking about, hey, why do you guys get so worked up in the north? After all, the border crossings into the United States from Mexico, they're down. That was in 2012. And subsequently, there were a series of stories I read, we should all have read, that said the same exact thing, that the border crossings were down. They were down because the economy in Mexico was bouncing back under the new president. They were down because the economy in the United States was not so good. And so more people were opting to stay in Mexico. So here comes Donald Trump and his Trumpsters, and they want to claim credit for something that occurred way back when the president was still hosting The Apprentice.
All right. Now, I recall when that cycle. But let's put this into perspective. Yeah, the Mexican economy is improving at about a 2.5% rate.
Right.
U.S. economy, when you're referencing, was down. But that economy in Mexico is still about 1/3 the U.S. economy.
Right.
So those numbers don't quite mesh out.
Right. So here's the risk factor is what you have to think about. So apples to apples, people are not coming to the United States because they're going to get the same level of job or a much bigger job, maybe a 10% increase or something in terms of the amount of wages they make. But they're going to get to stay in Mexico, not risk their lives. The journey becomes more dangerous every time we do more enforcement. The coyotes charge more money. What used to be $500 to come across is now $3,000, $4,000, or $5,000 to come across. So this show's about economics. It's about putting it on a spreadsheet. And likewise, in Mexican households, they put it on a spreadsheet and they say, well, yes, if I go to the United States, I'll make a little bit more money, but it's really not worth the risk anymore. The problem is that the people who criticize me for my appearance on Fox and Friends are based in Washington, D.C., which means they're stupid when it comes to immigration. Okay? They don't know anything about immigration. I've only written about immigration for 25 years from border cities.
Now, they in that article, they said you threatened the administration. They say you threatened any Latino who
offered aid and comfort to Donald Trump.
And
who worked for Donald Trump. Any Latino who works for Donald Trump, who attaches themselves to the administration, works in the White House, ought to be ashamed of themselves. They never get to come home again, because we're going to remember Donald Trump rode into office with anti-Latino demagoguery, started off coming down an escalator in Trump Tower, and right off the bat called my Mexican grandfather a criminal, a rapist, and a murderer.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I mean, I'm for secure borders.
Yeah.
But, as you know, Ruben, there's an expression in Mexico, good fences make good neighbors.
Right.
They used to call that a fence.
Right.
Now it's a wall, and it keeps getting taller. Words matter. While I may be for secure borders, I just want to go on a record. I'm stunned at the rhetoric that's been used.
Have you ever heard of something called the Reed-Johnson Act from 1924? It was the Immigration Act of 1924. And what it did was basically limit the number of people who came in to the United States from Italy.
Right.
Because in 1924, it was thought that there were too many Amatos coming in, okay? Yeah. Too many Saramucci's coming in. Everything was going to go to heck. Now, things were going to become much more entertaining when they got here. They were going to change the way we did politics, for sure. But they got together at the Reed-Johnson Act. If you take a look at the congressmen and senators who proposed the Reed-Johnson Act, it was filled with anti-Italian bigotry.
Right.
Here's my deal. If you want to talk about securing the border, I'm all for it. You want to talk about beefing up the Border Patrol, I'm all for it. Remove the bigotry.
I'm on board with that.
And we have never been able to do that. We were anti-German, anti-Irish, anti-Italian, anti-Jew, and now we're anti-Mexican. So that's the problem with what Donald Trump did. Not what he said, but, God, the way he said it.
Okay, well, that's different, though, than what you said in an article. I mean, what you said on Fox and Friends.
What I said on Fox and Friends, as I was asked the question, specifically, the person who wrote this column for Newsbusters, they criticized me, again, from a position of ignorance, because what they know about immigration could fit into a Dixie cup. As I tell people, they're one taco short of a combination plate of their understanding of immigration. However, what they said, and they asked me, was about the border crossings. And I said, it just doesn't make sense for you to claim credit for something that occurred 5 years before you got to office. Despite the fact that if you're a Trumpster, man, you're looking for a win today. You're feeling bad about what Scaramucci said. You're looking for a win, and you grab the border and say, there's the win. He's responsible for these border crossings going down.
All right, so you're in favor of implementing or applying the laws as they exist.
Totally.
But the hateful rhetoric is what you...
Yeah, the racist, hateful rhetoric, the bigotry. I'm tired of arguing with people who say that's not bigoted, that's not racist.
Yeah, it is.
It is. Let's be grown-ups about this, okay?
Otherwise, call someone rapist, and I guess he offhandedly said, I guess are some good ones.
Well, yeah, there was that, and then subsequently the area where he really crossed the line when Paul Ryan called him a racist was when Donald Trump said that a Mexican judge born in Indiana, could not adjudicate a case because he's, quote, Mexican.
Here in San Diego.
So that's like saying, because he's Italian, he can't be trusted to prosecute mobsters because he's Italian.
Right.
Tell that to Rudy Giuliani, who was Italian, a U.S. attorney who prosecuted mobsters.
What about sanctuary cities?
Yeah, no such thing as sanctuary cities. No such thing as a sanctuary city because there is no city in America where you can go to avoid paying taxes to the IRS. There is no city in America where you can go if you're an undocumented immigrant to avoid being detected and deported by ICE. No such place. And we proved that this week when the Trump administration decided to send in about 1,000 or so new Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, into sanctuary cities to round up folks.
All right, well, we're out of time. We'll have to continue this sometime. I just spoke with an immigration attorney this morning who is an anchor baby herself from Mexico, and she says sanctuary cities create a danger in America. It's where the shadow...
I would say she's right. The danger is that it fools Latinos into thinking that Democrats are on their side when they really aren't.
She says that.
Yeah, and it lures Republicans into this circular argument that really makes no sense.
And there's a lot of violence there that gets hidden under society's protective walls.
It's the danger of distraction.
All right. Ruben Navarrette, Washington Post Writers Group, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rick.
From the Liberatory CPA studios, I'm Rick Amato. Back with more right after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.